Hello, guys. We are here, Zach and myself, with Cassidy Werner, who is the public relations gremlin for Calliope Games. Hello, Cassidy. How in the world are you doing?
How in the world am I doing?
How in the world are you doing? Yes.
I'm doing well. How about you?
Great. We're doing well over here, and we're going to talk about the Titans of Gaming Kickstarter project that you guys have kicked off. It's such an exciting project. The basic rundown, as we understand it, is you have gotten together some of the best game designers in the world.
The Titans of Gaming.
The Titans of Gaming is what you're calling them. And you are getting them each to design kind of what you would consider a gateway game for the industry. So this is a little bit more of a relaxed, maybe a more family-suited game, a little bit less complex game that is kind of designed to get newer players or players who have not been engaged in tabletop into the genre. So we want to talk to you about that, and we also just want to talk to you a little bit about Calliope Games in general. So thank you so much for joining us. Let's kick it off with a general history of Calliope Games. What can you tell us? I know you guys started in 2009. What is Calliope Games?
So Calliope Games is Ray's response to what happened to him when he first got into the industry. He and Jordan Wiseman started WizKids a while back. You might have heard of them. And after they sold it, Ray was thinking back to how he was first introduced to board gaming and how there was this whole world of games that he had no idea existed. And he wanted to make games that would make it easier for people to get into board gaming. So, if you jump in and you immediately look at Arkham Horror or Twilight Imperium, they're great games, they're really cool, but they're a little intimidating to people that have never played anything but Monopoly before. So Calliope makes really affordable, family-friendly gateway games that you can play in under an hour and generally have 5 rules or fewer.
Yeah, I know that Suro, I believe, is like one of your guys' big flagship games. Tell us a little bit about how that game came about, and the kind of reaction that people have had to this idea of these kind of smaller gateway games that are much more approachable. What's the feedback been like?
Well, we came across Thorough by pure luck, actually. Jordan Wiseman came into a local game store around Redmond called Games and Gizmos, and Tom McMurtry, the designer, was sitting there playing it, and I think they were calling it Twiggles at the time. We changed it.
Twiggles.
But Jordan immediately fell in love with it, and they had WizKids at the time, so they grabbed it for WizKids to start publishing it there. But especially after WizKids was sold, they didn't have enough supporters of the game within the company. They saw it as kind of a back burner game compared to their collectible games. So they eventually gave the license back to the designer, and that's when Ray had already started Calliope and snapped that up really quickly. And we've been astounded by the response. We've sold lots and lots of copies. Everyone knows Suro. So people may not have heard of Calliope, but they'll say, "Oh, we published Suro," and they're like, "I should totally have heard of you." We're like, "Yeah,
Yes,
yes, you should have. That's us.
Yes." And this year is actually the 10th anniversary of Suro, so it's going to be an exciting thing. We're doing a luxury edition of it. We have a Suro app coming out. We have the 2 giant boards that we'll have out at Gen Con. And it's been humbling and really an amazing ride.
That's awesome.
Congratulations, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, well, so in light of that, right, so you have Suro and you've been making these gateway games, and you have this project called Titans of Gaming. So for everyone that doesn't know, I know Steven gave a little bit of a rundown, but as the PR gremlin, how would you describe this to someone? What is Titans of Gaming? I know I'm super excited about it. The moment I heard about it, I was in love with the idea. So what is Titans of Gaming? Sell me on it right now.
It is our not-so-secret plan for expanding the hobby and converting people to our geeky gaming ways.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good pitch. You
She
can
had a
get
one-liner.
that in the elevator. Yeah, that's the classic test.
Nailed it. So when you guys were, I mean, I know at this point you're in the middle of the Kickstarter. You guys have gotten most of the funding underway to get these huge designers to make these gateway games. Where did the idea come from, and how did it start? Like, what's the beginning of, something like this doesn't just happen. You don't just get 9 of the biggest game designers in the industry to design these games for you. So what's the beginning of this project look like?
As I understand it, Ray had an idea early one New Year's morning and picked up the phone and called James Ernest at 8:30 a.m. on New Year's Day, which you should never do.
Yeah.
And that's when it started. And despite waking James up at 8:30 in the morning after what I'm sure was an intense night of gaming with absolutely no drinking whatsoever.
None. None at all.
No, James Ernest jumped on board, and the Seattle area, we're really lucky here because we have a lot of designers. Only 3 of the Titans are not local to the Seattle area. So like Richard Garfield is local, Jordan Wiseman is local, Seth Johnson, although he moved, darn him. So a lot of the designers travel in the same circles.
Yeah.
So Ray just kind of went through and picked out who he wanted, and it was fairly easy to get in touch with a lot of them. So
Cool.
we're really lucky that way.
And so the conversation just started, and everyone was on board. What was the reactions like for most of these designers that you approach and say, hey, we have an idea for this project. We want to do this thing. Was it mainly like, I assume, positive responses, but anything notable there?
The responses were arranged. Some of them were really excited because they had a gateway game in mind that they hadn't been able to find a publisher for. Others were excited about the challenge of making a gateway game because it's one thing to design a game with lots of rules. If you don't have something working quite right in the game, you can make a rule to fix it. Incidentally, they call that the Paul Peterson rule because if you need a game broken, Paul Peterson will do it. So Paul Peterson rules start with you can't X. But there's something challenging about creating a really elegant game with really a lot fewer rules than we're used to seeing. So they were all pretty excited for different reasons.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the technical side of the Kickstarter itself. I think we understand really well like the scope of this project, right? Great designers designing great entry-level gateway games. And so after the Kickstarter is funded, which we have pitched some money into that, of course, and hopefully everyone watching will go do that. Go do that right now, immediately.
Absolutely.
This is a very important project. So after the funding, you have basically a year where you're planning to release 3 different titles. So you've got like Zach and Jordan are going to do one, then Paul Peterson's got one slated, and Richard Garfield. So those are all in the first year. And then the next year, it looks like Eric Lang, Seth Johnson, Mike Selinker are year 2, and then Mike Elliott, Rob, and Mike Mulvihill are year 3. So this is a 3-year investment on both Calliope and for people who kickstart this project. They're going to be getting kind of an injection of these games over the next 3 years, which sounds phenomenal. So you guys are going to be basically just kind of slow rolling these things out. Is that correct?
Yes.
And
with the stretch goals that might actually stretch into a 4th year.
Yeah, tell us about the stretch goals. What can people expect if you guys hit those ranks?
It's just an extension of the Kickstarter. So we have 3 years worth of games right now. With James Ernest is our first stretch goal at 150,000. He's already started on his game, so we would be putting that through our voting system, whatever we decide to have the backers vote on for that game, and then rolling that out in the 4th year. Unless something magical happens and we can release it in the 3rd year. If these games are done earlier, we're happy to release them earlier. It's just the schedule we have is what we're comfortable committing to because we don't want to sacrifice quality on any of them.
Yeah. What about I'm pretty interested in like the look and feel of these games, and so I see like on the Kickstarter page they have a very similar like style and cover. Are you intending for it to have a kind of uniform feel across all of these Titan games? Are they going to have the same kind of art style, same kind of box style, or are they all going to be different?
They're all going to be different. Especially once we get past the Kickstarter exclusive box art. So for that, we're a little bit more open to suggestions for what the backers want it to look like. If they want it to have, a similar frame or a similar style on the sides, we're happy to work with our backers on that, whatever they want. But then afterwards, we really don't want people to feel like that if they buy one Titan game at the friendly local game store that they need the others to play or anything like that. So we're going to make them each pretty clear standalone games. We might have, we call him Meep Atlas, our little meeple with the die. We might have him on the side.
That's cool. So based on that response, my next question was, are these going to be available not through the Kickstarter at the local game store? And I assume that's the case, but what's the plan for that? Will these roll out at the same time they're being shipped to Kickstarter people, or...
It will ship to distribution and to backers at the same time. So backers will receive them about 2 to 3 weeks before friendly local game stores because of the distribution delay there. And the retail copies will not have the Kickstarter exclusive box art.
Cool. So the people that Kickstarter it will get it early, a little bit early, and have exclusive art you can't buy anywhere else, basically.
Mhm.
And then, but you will be able to buy, like if you're really into Richard Garfield, you could buy his gateway game whenever it releases.
Right.
That's
And the
super
retail
cool.
stores that back will also their demo copies, which I believe is relevant to your interest.
Absolutely.
Your demo copies will also have the exclusive art. So after you open that and play it, you're welcome to sell that as well. Keep it on the store, whatever you want to do with it.
Well, when we first heard about this project, Cassie, like it was such a phenomenal thing to know that this was going to happen, or at least there were people thinking in this way. Because, we've run into this, especially having the store, and we've been trying to get people into games, and it's really all about opening the genre up to more and more people. And that you guys took this project on and said, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it right, and we're going to, get it funded and roll out with these amazing games that are designed for that audience that a lot of times is not engaged like it should be, I think is phenomenal. So from your end, you've got 12 days right now as of recording this interview to get this thing fully funded. I think you're about 5,000 to 6,000 away. What would you say to people watching this, listening to this, who are on the fence about backing this project? A final prompt maybe to get them to make the plunge ultimately.
I think it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I don't know if we'll be crazy enough to try this again in the future. So the fact that you get to vote with your fellow backers and really have a hand in creating these games, I think is something that no one has ever done before, with the exception of Paul Peterson and his mashup It's Your Fault expansion. But the scope of this is much larger. So, we're also having that seminar available to a certain level of backers. We announced it over the weekend, the Titan Introduction to Game Design seminar.
Nice.
So we're having 5 designers who have teaching experience come in and introduce our backers to the basics of game design. So I think it's a really interesting way to get involved in the industry more so than we'll be able to in the future.
Wow. Yeah, great work. All right, well, thank you so much for joining us, Cassidy, and for letting us know a little bit more about this project. Those of you guys out there who are watching this, go to Kickstarter right now. Get this project funded, and if it's not funded, get it funded harder, because the more of these games we can get, the better. Special thanks to Calliope, and hopefully we'll be in touch with you guys soon. Thanks so much,
Best
Cassidy.
of luck.